everyone. Willkommen to the Shakespeare Shrew abroad. I am your Shakespearean Shrew, Karen Feiner, lover of all things bard. And this is a decorum be damned entrance into all things theater, literature, and the fun stuff in between. So today I am talking to Luke Swanson, author of novels The Other Hamlet Brother, Curtains on a Christmas Carol, Epicenter, Spectators of War, and that's just to name a few.
Just a few of them. You got the good ones. You got the good ones.
Like there's bad ones. Thank you.
Depends who you ask.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we have a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to kind of jump into this.
Okay, let's go.
Even just like the titles, already there is a diverse kind of spectrum in terms of your books and the titles and where they seem to go. So how would you describe yourself as an author and like the genre or the kind of books that you write?
So as an author so far, each book I've written has been in a different genre. I haven't double dipped yet. If I had an agent, they'd tell me to pick a lane, but I don't. So I do what I want. I've done several different things. I've done an action thriller that was Epicenter. I've done a cozy mystery. I've done a dystopian sort of satire thing, and you know, a weird Shakespearean fantasy tragic comedy, throw in some more genres into there. So my genres are all over the map, and that is kind of by design. But regardless of genre, whatever I write, kind of the through line, I have kind of the stated purpose that I want to write stories that make you think a little but feel a lot. You know, I'm not the smartest writer. I don't have a huge output. I'm not a bestseller. I'm not fancy, but I don't know how else to say it, but I love feeling. So if you read one of my books, I want you to feel something unique about the story and the characters on the page, you know, but also feel something about the world around you, feel something about yourself that you might not have felt before. So that's kind of what I try to do whenever I put words to page.
So do you have a favorite book child?
You probably get that's hard to pick. The Other Hamlet Brother is probably the most me. It's something this weird and esoteric wouldn't exist without me being gonzo enough to write it. You know, that it's a weird convergence of a lot of my niche interests. I put a lot of myself into the Tim character. So it's the most me. I'd probably say that's my favorite. But another book of mine, Spectators of War, I'd probably say that's my best. I'm very, very proud of that one. So those two are neck and neck, but Other Hamlet Brother is probably my favorite. It wouldn't exist without me being off the rails enough to actually think about and write that. It's the most me.
So I really like that aspect of it. So we're gonna come back to The Other Hamlet Brother, because I can't wait to talk about The Other Hamlet Brother.
Man.
Who just turned 5.
Yes, he's a toddler.
Spectators of War, really quickly. You said it was your best.
Mm-hmm.
What, by your definition, makes it the best?
Yeah, that's hard to pin down. I think it's the most cinematic, maybe. It has really solid character arcs, in my totally unbiased opinion, of course. I like the premise a lot. I'm very proud of that. It's where audiences watch live war. It's war is the new spectator sport. I think that's a really good idea for a Black Mirror episode. And I thought, why hasn't Black Mirror done that? You know what? I should do that. That's kind of my fill the gap philosophy. Yeah.
It's almost like Gladiators, but moving forward into the future where it's war.
For sure.
Interesting.
And it's because it's me, it's also kind of like show business. There's directors, there's diva soldiers with their demands for what kind of weapons they use, and they can't work under these conditions. And there's backstage, and there's writers for the battles. So it's also very me. Nothing I write apparently cannot have
a little bit of you.
Cannot have theater kid energy.
Which
So I'm very proud of Spectators of War. I also think it's kind of sprawling in a way that I'm proud of, that there's a lot of characters to it, and they all interconnect in a very interesting way. So that was personally, behind the scenes hard to do. So I'm proud that I did that. However, the other Hamlet brother, again, very wacky, very silly, and it's very me. So I am proud of it too.
Yeah, and you actually answered one of the questions that I had because I was reading this, and Tim, one of the characters, I kept getting these pieces and these like I was like, I feel like that's Luke. Like I feel
Oh man.
like the moment that he's talking about what it means to be an author,
Mm-hmm.
or he made the joke about like actors just calling it quits when it gets hard, but he's not an actor. He's a writer, and I was laughing a lot because it did feel very authentic in those
Well,
moments.
thank
We were
you.
like, I wonder how much of Luke is in this aspect, and kind of answered my question on that one. Um, this one has been so much fun for me because, I'm going to be straight up. I first started reading this, and I'm the Shakespearean Shrew. I
Uh-huh.
love Shakespeare, and so I got into it, and I was like, okay, Hamlet, cool, let's go. And then I started reading it, and I was like, not Hamlet, not. And I had like, and I was like, it was like an adverse reaction where I was like, not Shakespeare, not Shakespeare. And then I kept reading, and it was like, not Shakespeare, but, not Shakespeare, but pulling all of these characters together from Shakespeare and these different ideas and these different phrases and these different jokes
Mm,
where you're like, okay, so one, it allowed me because I don't think this would be considered a spoiler alert, but we're talking
yeah, yeah.
about, Romeo shows up and
Yes.
Kent shows up and Caliban shows up and, Miranda, like the whole gang is in here. There are references to the Merchant of Venice. There are,
Mm-hmm.
everything you can think of kind of shows up here in bits and pieces. And it was really fun because as a Shakespearean, I knew the backstories, so I could pull in some of those pieces. And also, it's Romeo. You're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
who you gonna like now? Who's next on your
He
list, right?
falls in love instantly. Yes. I think even if you aren't a Shakespearean, expert, encyclopedic on it, oh, Romeo's the fall in love guy. And you've
Yes.
never heard of Kent, but oh, he's the grumpy soldier guy.
Kent
Dogberry is
is
very
very
into his job, but he's kind of dumb. And I tried to write it in a way that you could not even know what the word bard is, and
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 that's
it
what
still
was
have a
so
lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was so much fun because for me, I kind of had all these background elements, but I was talking about your book with my mom, and I was like, I you don't have to. I was because she was talking about her book club, and I was like, this one you can, and if you do, you get like there's pieces that you're like, oh, dig, got it, like you can
Hmm.
connect the dots, and then if you don't, you still can get it, like you still can contextually follow it. So I thought it was really fun because it's this crazy amalgamation of characters and the anachronisms. The language is not Shakespearean at all, although there are quotations in here from
Yes.
Shakespeare. But the language is, and the references are not Shakespearean at all. So, how did you merge these different elements together? How did you
Hmm.
take these characters, and then we've got a Russian pirate thrown into the mix, and we're going, who are you? And I was trying to I was going through a Rolodex in my head where I was going, am I missing? And but then you still connected it in a really fun way later. So how did you storyboard this? How did you decide which pieces to bring in and how to bring them in?
Hmm. So for the modern language and the modern references and humor, and it's all very silly. No, to sum that up, I'm a student of the Muppets and Mel Brooks. Uh, Sometimes I pitch the other Hamlet brother as the Young Frankenstein of Shakespeare, that you know Frankenstein, but there's this other guy over here doing his own thing. I was also really inspired by a TV show called Gallivant that only aired for 2 seasons before getting axed because no one watched it but me.
So I felt
So I'm still very bitter that Gallivant got taken away, but that's a big inspiration in the sense of humor here. So with all the modern language, there's, I can be hoity-toity about it for a second. There's something I find interesting about the folding of time, about all realities and time periods coexisting at once. Like, why can't there be references to The Godfather and here at the same time? But again, that's just me trying to sound smart. Honestly, having references to, basketball, March Madness, and Broadway shows, and people saying, "Oh crap," while wearing pantaloons, I just think that's funny. I'm not that complicated. I'm not that smart. So in essence, if I thought something would be funny, I kind of went with it. And that's, to loop back, I don't have an agent right now. I'm not with a big publisher. So everything I've written so far is exactly what I wanted it to be, for better or for worse. I know with big boy publishing, sometimes authors have to make trims that they don't want to, or change story points that they genuinely don't want to change. I haven't run into that yet, so I get to do whatever I want. If I want there to be a big, I don't know, anachronistic, strange, I'm trying to think of more examples. Weird. If I want there to be weird stuff, you know what? There's going to be weird stuff. The Russian pirates, narratively, they come back towards the end. But the reason for them being Russian was the setup for a joke, because someone says to Tim, "Where are you going? Why are you in a hurry?" And Tim says, "Everyone else is Russian around here." And that's a very dumb joke, but that's the entire reason that I chose them to be Russian, because I get to do that whenever you're the writer.
I love that. Oh, man. Okay. Fair enough. I love it. So the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I had an author on a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things we talked about...
A really smart author, and then you get me.
Now. No self-deprecating you. Well, actually, we live off...
That's what I do.
Right? Like,
yeah.
How we make the big bucks.
You make the big bucks? Man, I'm in the wrong place.
Absolutely not.
I wrote Hamlet fan fiction. I'm not exactly rolling in it either. So welcome.
This is why we get along so well.
Yeah, let's go.
So we were talking a lot about names, because in their book, they rename a lot of their characters, or rather, they allow their characters to rename themselves and re-identify themselves. And I thought it was so interesting because, as I'm looking through, names are a big part of this book as well, both in terms of understanding who Tim is, understanding who Glenn is.
Oh.
You have to read to find out about Glenn. And then the idea of the name of Hamlet and what that name means, and the idea of surnames and the belonging that comes with them, but also the entrapment that comes from them.
And the choice. The choice to either run to or run away.
And I thought that was really interesting because it connected names and fate and identity into such an interesting, and and this is hilarious. I actually snorted tea, which was hot tea. I don't recommend it.
Put that on the cover.
We'll make you snort hot tea. But it also has some really dark moments in it as well. And that idea of identity, can you ever really know yourself? Or do you only know yourself in relation to others? And I was really curious because I kind of got mixed messages in the book. And I wanted to hear your 2 cents on that idea of identity for you. Not for your characters,
Sure.
but for you, where do you fall in terms of the idea of, as Eric Fortinbras says, be your own person, but can
Can
you?
you? Can you be your own person? Uh, excuse me. That I'm going to quote someone fancy and say, "What's past is prologue." Right? That you, what came before does not determine what's going to happen, but you're lying if you say that it doesn't heavily influence the future. The past influences the future. Direction is indicative of destination 100% of the time. So, but then, that's physics, that's fate, that's life. But then you have the weird human element where you get to choose. Do you turn left or right? And so the pathway that you're on in life, and I'm speaking very generally, of course, is not chosen for you. You do not choose your pathway, but you choose which way you go, right? You don't choose your last name, you don't choose your family, but you do choose your friends. You do choose how you associate with people. So I think that's a lot of the weird mixture of fate and choice.
I, so I talked about the darkness in this, and I can say this without any spoilers. So here we go. The moment he walks away from Ophelia,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had gotten stabbed in the heart.
Mm.
Like it was this moment of feeling very betrayed.
Mm.
Um, and so you talked about feeling and the importance of feeling for your books. How much of that lends itself to the complexity of feeling that your characters create? Because every time I expected somebody to be someone and play a certain role, they didn't. And,
Well,
and it
well, thank
was,
you. That means I did my job. Thank you very much. I did that, or I'll say I tried to do that, to do three-dimensional complex characters. Because whenever you take writing classes and you talk about flat characters versus well-rounded characters, kind of the way I define that in my head is that you can't sum them up in one sentence. That's what makes a three-dimensional character, and that's not easy to do. That they can be consistent yet surprising, because if something comes out of nowhere, you don't, that's just me cheating. That's not fun either. But to do that consistently yet surprisingly throughout a story, in following the arc of the comet, that it's going to land where you think it's going to land, but in an inevitable, shocking way, inevitable but shocking. That's hard. Well, so thank you for doing that, or thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
thank you for doing it. With that, it just, you talked about the three-dimensional characters. So where do you feel like where do you land on like the heroes and villains? How do you feel about those kinds of characters? Um, and do you use them in your books? Is
Hmm.
that something that emerges, or do you try to complicate every
Uh,
character?
I love villains. Everybody loves the bad guys. Nobody plots like Gaston, takes cheap shots like Gaston. Everybody loves the villains. So yeah, I definitely have villains in my books. Probably my favorite villain that I've written is, his name is Ajax. He's in Epicenter, which is my action Die Hard type book. I think I tried to complicate him a lot, and this isn't a conversation about Epicenter, so I won't get too far into it, but he's a lot younger than the hero. He's trying to prove himself to his bosses, but he's placed into a position of authority over people who are a lot older than him, and they don't like that. So I like Ajax a lot. Anyway, so I do love villains. The villain in the other Hamlet brother might be fate itself, right? That fate kills everybody who dies in the other Hamlet brother. It's not a ton of people, but if you're familiar with Hamlet itself, a lot of people die in that. And, you know, I'm kind of beating around the spoiler narrative thrust of the other Hamlet brother in my book, that you can't escape the story, capital S, that is looming over you. And in this case, the story that Shakespeare wrote of Hamlet, that Tim desperately tries to get out of it, but he doesn't. So in that case, capital F fate might be the villain, or Shakespeare, if you want to look at it that way. Maybe Shakespeare's the villain.
I mean, yeah.
Let's say that. That sounds fun.
That does sound fun. I like it. It sounds like the title of the episode. So, being an author comes with a lot of highs and a lot of lows. What's been one of your biggest highs?
Biggest high. I always say, and this will get me banned from some fancy writing circles, but I always say that I hate writing, but I love having written. I hate writing, but I love the finished product. The process for me is hard. It's a chore. It's something that I have to make myself do. But I keep at it exactly because I love the end result. I love holding the finished product. And I've loved everything I've written so far exactly because I put in the work. So finishing a project is always an awesome high. And I've had, writing is very solitary, but I've had a few book signing events in person. And seeing my friends come support me is just awesome. So that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's, do people show up? And the fact that they do show up and support me is wonderful. That's really cool.
So always you have to ask, because as an author, it comes with rejection. It comes with ideas that just never meet fruition or just never really become what you want them to on the page. How do you deal with the lows? How do you deal with that element?
For sure. As cool as the in-person signing events are, looking at the online sales is not as fun. The numbers don't lie, and they're telling hard truths. If I had the secret to dealing with failure and rejection, if I had the secret to that, one, I'd be very rich. And two, I wouldn't have the monthly breakdowns that my wife has to deal with. So, yeah, there's no sugarcoating or avoiding it. That rejection stings. I finished writing 2 books last March. That's March of 2025. And I've been submitting them to agents this whole time. And, no bites. It's been a year now. So with those, I'm probably reaching the point where I just print them myself, just so I can say that they exist, so that I can have the high of holding them, which is why I, do what I do, so I can hold the final product and say, look at this. So I might have to just go to Kinko's and spend $2,000 on all the pages. So to your question, how do I handle the rejections? I'd say the next project, right? Look to the future, strive toward the horizon, right? Which I clearly don't do well, because here I am wallowing, and whining. But in the ideal, you keep moving forward. You keep striving to the next great thing.
Well, I mean, I've got a book that I've been submitting on and off for 4 years to over, I don't even want to talk about how many.
Yeah, do you want to pull up Query Tracker right now and compare?
Oh my God, we can totally compare because it's bad.
Yeah.
And Query Tracker is great, but also causes a lot of anxiety.
The rejections are little frowny faces, and it's so sad.
Oh no, it should just be like a fire.
Yeah.
Fire.
It should be a hug. It shouldn't be a literal red frowny face. We're already sad.
No, we're already frowning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, querytracker.net. .net? You're not even .com. I shouldn't insult Query Tracker. They could
I
It
know
could
that.
change my life tomorrow. I love you, Query Tracker. You don't need .com. You're better than .com.
Now you're just kissing up.
Yeah, I can be sold. I can be bought. Yeah, I'm open to bribes.
So with, I like I said, I completely understand. Mine usually includes pints of ice cream. Uh, that's how we get through the day.
Ah,
But I think you're actually like I love the point about the next project focusing
mhm.
on the what comes next. Um, and I want to talk about that, but I do I want to talk about that now?
You're the teacher. You're the smart one. Do what you got to do.
I'm like, it flows so well. Uh, so, what comes next? What are you working
Hmm.
on now that you've kind of
Yeah.
decided these two are you're going to just move forward in a different way with these two
Hmm.
pieces?
I always try to have some things in the oven. My career, quote unquote, career so far has just been a shotgun blast of different things to see if this one doesn't hit, maybe this one will. That's everything's a different genre, a different tone so far. Epicenter ain't funny at all. So I try a bunch of different things. So to the point that I try to have a lot of things going as much as I can. And as much as I love you and trust you, I won't go into too many details because I don't have an agent and nothing's copyrighted yet. So anyone who's listening, poised, ready to pounce, can just take my concepts, which I think are pretty good, and plug them into ChatGPT and have a whole book published tomorrow, and there's really nothing I can do to stop that. So I won't give too much away, but this is
Yeah.
a podcast and we're here to chat. I have those two books finished. So what those are, I'm trying to get those out into the world. I'll say one is a sequel to Curtains on a Christmas Carol. That's another cozy mystery. That's kind of uh, my first repeat, my first double dip. That's my first sequel. Another cozy mystery, same characters. This one on Halloween. So I had the Christmas one. Now I have a Halloween one. And the other book, when it's published, I think it'll be my new best one and my new favorite. I think it's really great. I started writing it in 2020, which is the fun times, whenever everyone started writing stuff. But I finished it in March 2025, so it's big. It's not just long, but it's major. I think it's very sprawling and big. So I spent hundreds of hours on it and writing and thinking and brainstorming and staring at the dark ceiling in the middle of the night. So I'm very proud of it, and I hope everyone gets to see it eventually. And we can come back to this episode and go, oh, he was talking about that.
And we'll have to have you back on to talk about it once it gets into the world.
Deal. See you then.
No, just kidding. So with that element of, because I mean, a part of it's the market. You've got these
Absolutely.
great pieces, these great works, one of which you think is your best, but sometimes it's not just the book itself, it's the market. And if it's
Mm,
saturated in a certain genre, like mine is historical fiction at a time when historical fiction has kind of, unless it's
mm.
a certain lusty historical fiction, stopped really kind of selling at the moment.
Unless your
So,
name is Kristen Hanna. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, how do you write to the market? Do you try to think about what is selling? And because I
Mm.
know a lot of authors that say they do, and then some who say, I do what I want. How do you straddle that line?
What if I say both? That's not a very helpful answer. I do what I want. The hmm. Yeah, Curtains on a Christmas Carol honestly was born out of people like Hallmark movies. Let's see what I can do with that. And I'm very proud of it. I wrote what I wanted to write with it, but it was born from kind of loosey-goosey, cutesy, sugar cookie Christmas story. And again, I love murder. I love theater. So that's what I made it. So I kind of tried to write to that market. And I'll just say that the big one that I love, is also based on other characters, like Hamlet was, like Curtains on a Christmas Carol, not so much because there are other people performing in Christmas Carol anyway, as opposed to Hamlet actually being Hamlet.
Right.
So somebody could come in and call me lazy and unimaginative because I just keep taking other stuff. But maybe they're right. But that's life.
Well, I have a question.
Nah. I'm going to do it anyway.
I mean, that brings up the point, though, of is there anything new?
Oh,
Is
for
there
sure.
anything? Is there anything, though? uh, you talk about you're writing characters that already exist,
Mm-hmm.
but somebody could write a different character, name it a different character, but it's the same, you know, love story of enemies to lovers that's been
Mm-hmm.
told 5,624 times, and you're like, but they're new characters. Is there really in literature, are there that many moments of new?
Oh, I'd say no, for sure not. There's new authors, there's new, I don't know, writing styles and interesting ways to think about things. Of course, there's new you, there's new me. The writer, the readers are different. Everybody brings something new to the canvas, but stories, characters, nah. They're we're we're an old species at this point. People have written a lot over the dawn of civilization, and that's funny what you said. With this book, with my pre-existing characters, I kicked around doing control find replace on the names just to see if maybe that'll change something. But I do think, back to the scary word market, I think it'd be very marketable with the pre-existing characters. I think people would get a kick out of that because it is new. It is a new story with these characters, which might, pre-existing IP and name recognition is extremely important. uh, Hamlet, Scrooge, people tend to latch onto things that they recognize.
Yeah.
Our lizard brains like that.
Well, and when because I went through some of your reviews, which are very good, by
Yes.
the way. Uh, but the two that are most reviewed are The Other Hamlet Brother and Curtains on a Christmas Carol.
Really?
And it
Well,
made
there you
me
go.
wonder if it connects to that same idea of the familiarity of it, like the
Mm,
comfort of something that you know as a connection to what you don't.
uh-huh. That's very interesting. So now I'm thinking, what can I write with the Odyssey in the title? Really fast.
Can
Get
you do
them
everything with
clicks
the Odyssey really fast?
really fast before the movie comes out
Oh my
and
gosh.
all the bros start reading it. I'll have to think about that.
I always liked the dog in the Odyssey. That was always my favorite
Everyone
character.
likes the dog.
I don't know.
I'm not smart enough for the Odyssey. I haven't actually read the Odyssey. Don't tell my college professors, but no, I did not. I did not read the Odyssey. Sorry. Sorry,
Were
Dr.
you,
McBride.
so were you a drama major in
I was an English writing major.
your okay.
Mm. I wasn't even a theater kid. I was a wannabe theater kid. Do you know how pathetic that is? I wanted to be a theater kid. My older brother was the theater kid. He was Harold Hill. I was salesman number two. He was the scarecrow. I was an apple tree throwing the apples. So I was always hanging on, which is fun. I loved doing it. It's great memories. That's kind of a fun thing is that Curtains on a Christmas Carol is a walking tour of the theater in Yukon, Oklahoma, where we used to do all these community theater shows. So if you read through the story, going up the stairs, looking at things, left here is the green room, right here is the hallway with the dingy ceilings. That it's the physical geography of the theater. Great memories. Anyway, all that to say,
Love it. I mean, write what you know.
for sure, it's fun.
So what is with you talked about trying to get an agent, you talked
Mm-hmm.
about book signings and social media and reviews. Well, I talked about reviews.
Yeah.
But in this world where technology, you mentioned my least favorite word, AI.
Boo. Boo. I
in
think
the
this is a good audience to say that. Boo.
Absolutely. I think
Thumbs
most of my
down.
listeners would agree with that statement, whether
Yeah.
they are actors or writers.
Yeah.
It's kind of been a travesty against the arts. They're like, it'll help people with their work and make them more efficient. And you're going, then why is it in the arts?
Yeah, unless you're curing cancer, I don't think you need to use that.
So anyway, what are some of the benefits and real struggles with the emerging fast-paced technology that we've
Hmm. For sure. I'm still, excuse me. I'm still very much an outsider looking in the publishing industry. So I'm just trying to get into it. So with
I think it's like a interesting because
mhm.
you and me both like and one of the things have you heard a lot about like the social media presence and like having a lot of
Mhm.
followers and that whole
you
shtick?
you need followers, you need a pre-existing crowd. Which which is why I'm here, Karen.
It's kind of a catch
Like and
20.
subscribe.
I
It's
agree.
hard. It's hard.
It is. It feels like a catch 22 sometimes.
Hmm.
You've got to have an audience, a following to get a publisher, to get an agent even. But
To get an audience, you need an audience to get your audience. It's okay.
exactly.
Yes, sir.
Ah, and so yeah, I there is a catch 22 that I think has emerged, and I think AI has created. They say people if you use an M dash, it's a big signal that you are using AI, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't take my M dash away from me.
You will pry my M dash from my cold, dead, carpal tunnel ridden fingers. I've been using the M dash
I was so upset.
since the days of old. You
Ah,
merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it. I was molded by the M dash. How dare you? You can't take my M dash. I love the M
so
dash.
me too. And
Hmm.
so one of the things that you said to your followers, because you do have a good amount of followers,
Oh, stop
um,
it.
we can always have some more. All right, everybody like and subscribe. But when you're talking about what to do to become an author,
Hmm.
to become the best writer, one of the things you said was read.
For sure.
Are there certain things that they that people should be reading? Are there certain types
Hmm.
of reading, or does it not matter? Read whatever, just read. What's your
Yes and no. I'd say read anything you could get your hands on. The staples are staples for a reason. At this point, 200, 100 years old, they've got something to say. But ultimately, yeah, classic, contemporary, I'd say read anything. Casting a wide net will tell you what works, and more importantly, I'd say will tell you what doesn't work. Because some things just aren't good. That you don't really say that in book podcasts, but some things aren't good. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but if you read a lot, you'll go, "Ooh, not going to do that," because all writers steal, and that's just the nature of it. So if you can take little nuggets of what you like and steer clear of what you think is flat out bad, you can kind of Frankenstein together your own project. Because,
yeah.
I'm the sum total of everything I've ever read and every movie and every show I've ever seen. So it all comes together whenever you're a writer or any kind of storyteller. It's all just a big mixing bowl.
I would agree. So the other element is, talking about technology. You said that you've turned all of your novels that you've written thus far into screenplays. What instigated that?
Yeah, throw that out into the world to all the Hollywood bigwigs I know are listening. I know you like IP. How about some Shakespeare fan fiction? Some Hermione fan fiction just got $1 million movie deal, so why not some Hamlet fan fiction, huh? So anyway, no, I've always been a big movie guy. That's a big dream of mine to get a movie made. The cinema, the theater, I just love it. And I'm really proud of these stories, and I think they translate well on screen. So I'm just a movie guy. I think that'd be so cool.
So do you have ideas for who you would cast in, say, the other Hamlet brother?
Mm. Yes and no. I've 100% thought about this. So for casting the other Hamlet brother, I thought it'd be really cool. Because there are a bunch of different Shakespeare characters altogether, right? There's Romeo and Claudius and Nick Bottom and Prospero and more and more and more. So anyway, I thought they, because I'm not in this, the big wigs, they could send out a casting call all around the world, really, to local Shakespeare companies and troops for actors who've played those characters before. So in this screen version of Prospero, we'd cast a hardworking theater guy who's played the role before, but now he can get silly with it, right? Because my book's a very silly book. So I think populating it with Shakespearean, small town, hardworking theater actors would be really, really cool who've played those roles before.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hear that? Karen thinks it's a good idea.
So we were talking about, you know, the good ideas and how to catch those good ideas, and that's what people are looking for, right? When they're looking for at screenplays, when they're looking at, they're looking for the good ideas. However, a problem that a lot of authors, I think, come across is that they have good ideas, good screenplays, and then what is created from them is not connected really, or is a very bastardized version of their creation. Is that something you're concerned about with the whole screenplay thing? Or if they take it, it's theirs, and you're kind of willing to let it go and become whatever it becomes from there?
That is interesting. It hasn't happened yet, so this is all theoretical. Yeah, that's uh hmm. So I also work at a bookstore, and something that happens is whenever Wuthering Heights comes out, Wuthering Heights gets bought a lot, and a lot of people are reading the original Bronte book. So I think, hey, you can mess up my movie all you want. I think a lot of people would still buy the book. However, yes, it would hurt to see it not be what exactly I wanted it to be. Y'all can try if you want. If you want to pay me $1 million, you can mess it up as much as you want. I'm not proud. And there's kind of the thing of, would I rather have no product or a mediocre product, right? That's not the most artsy answer, but if you have to choose between nothing and a 6 out of 10, I might go with the 6 out of 10, That's not the most artistically integrity answer, but here we are.
I mean, it takes money to write, especially if you want it to be your job to write. So I think that there is some of that where you wonder, like, A Christmas Carol, like you wonder, Dickens serialized all of his works because it made money and kept him out of debtor's prison for a while. And so that idea of, I don't think that's a new struggle that authors are having. I think that's the age old struggle is, do you stay true to your art or do you eat?
Yep. And I'll reference again. I don't have the agent. I don't have the big boy publishers. So far, what's on the page is what I've wanted it to be. So if somebody did want to take Epicenter and just completely mess it up, hey, I've still got mine. I'm still very proud of mine. I would love for y'all to stick to my screenplay and have me on the set and listen to whatever I say, and I'll bug you forever. But I still have exactly what I wanted on the page of Epicenter. And it's not perfect. That's how you go, is that as you get older and wiser of a year ago, you read and go, oh, I changed that. That was kind of a mistake. That's not what I'm talking about, is that the little nitpicky author brain. Aside from that, what's on the page, I'm very happy with. So there's still that.
So when you write, do you plan out your plots in their entirety ahead of time, or is it more like organic?
So for the other Hamlet brother, that is one of my earlier books. So now today I map out the whole plot, mainly for the sake of the character arcs. Uh, I think those need to be fastidiously planned out so that nothing comes out of nowhere, right? And everything feels earned. So, like I said, shocking but inevitable. Those need to be planned out very carefully. Now, all that being said, the other Hamlet brother, I actually did build the plane while flying. I broke my own rules on that. I'm older and wiser now. I would never do that. But the other Hamlet brother, I kind of made up as I went. I started writing unsure where it would go. And about midway through, or a third of the way through, I had the idea for the dramatic thrust of the story, which I guess I won't spoil, because not everybody's read it. Statistically, nobody's read it. So I guess that's a spoiler for everyone on Earth. Anyway, but with the themes and the characters, I got lucky. I just flat out, I got lucky that what I wrote before I came up with the plot worked, and I'm very happy with it. I'm happy with how it turned out. So today I map everything out. But the story and the emotional arcs and the other Hamlet brother, I think all ended up solid, despite me. Despite me. In my opinion, of course. My totally unbiased opinion.
Well, I think also like the idea that I think Shakespeare helped you a little bit on that one, because since you were lending and allowing a lot of Shakespeare's works to shape your work,
Definitely.
It kind of pushed your plot, I think,
Mhm.
where it was meant to go, even maybe
Yeah.
subconsciously, because it really did. At the beginning, I was like, "Where the hell are we going?" And I was like, "Oh, this is where we're going."
This is where we're going. Like
So,
they all get stranded on the Tempest Island, right? That was me just kind of having fun so far. Well, let's gather up a bunch of people and get them stranded on the Tempest Island. But I do think it all, luckily, worked out, even thematically, that I thought it was fun that, in choosing all these different characters of who I include, first I wondered who would butt heads, right? You'd have the big abrasive personalities. So you have Romeo and Dogberry and Kent and Nick Bottom, all get stranded on the Tempest Island. So they need to overcome their differences to get out of their situation, right? That's conflict. That's surface level. Oh no. And that's very fun, and I like that. Don't get me wrong. But also, I liked the idea that this is a speed bump for Tim, just as he's on his way back home. He's minding his own business, really. He's on his way to be integrated back into the story of Shakespeare's Hamlet. This is just a side adventure for him. And it's the same for all these other characters, too. So Miranda's at a big turning point. Romeo's at a major turning point whenever he gets stranded on an island. Dogberry's at a turning point in his constable career. And then they all split up. They just all go back to their own stories. They continue on, off screen, if you will. And we just happen to follow Tim back into the Hamlet story. So I thought that was a lot of fun, that everybody is their own main character. And that plays into what eventually we find out about the nature of these people.
well, and it seems like metatextuality is a big part of your writing.
That's a fancy word. Let's go with that.
And for those of you who are not familiar with the term, it's referencing other literary works or self-referencing your own work within the work as you're writing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And you do both. So that's fun. in
Go
the
me.
other brother. It sounds like you also use that same kind of concept in some of your other works.
Mm-hmm.
So now when people say like, that's so meta, that's what it means, people.
For sure.
Use it well. But is that something that has always kind of been a style that you've leaned into, something that, you mentioned on social media once to your viewers to fill the gaps.
Mm. Hmm.
So, as such a voracious reader as you are, I mean, you work at a bookstore. I've seen many posts where you're talking about books. So, as a voracious reader, is that one of the ways you find your stories is finding the holes in the stories you love?
Hmm. Oh, for sure. I say fill the gap as a way to say, write the book that you want to read, right? To paraphrase the great Toni Morrison, write the book that you want to read. Uh, so if your mind is wandering and you think of a cool little concept, a cool what if scenario, what if idea, and you think someone should write that, you should write that. So yeah, there's infinite gaps to be filled. Curtains on a Christmas Carol. I love A Christmas Carol. That's, if anybody knows me, they know I love A Christmas Carol and Hamlet, and they should be put in a time capsule forever. Excellent human achievements in art. Sculpture, painting, any works of art. You got Hamlet and A Christmas Carol in there. So I chose that for that setting because I love it. B, if you want to get smart about it, a big part of A Christmas Carol is the Dickens A Christmas Carol is putting yourself in other shoes and empathy. And that is a big part of Tina's journey, the main character there. She learns to she learns to make herself heard and find value in herself, and she ultimately solves the mystery by walking through other people's shoes. And so there's a parallel there that's, I thought it through, not just a hat rack up here on top of my head. So that's how the Christmas Carol themes play into the Curtains on a Christmas Carol themes. So yes, all that to say, there's gaps in everything. There's infinite gaps in storytelling, even in your favorite things. If my lame fan fiction can tell you anything, you could do it too. I'm not that smart. You can do it too.
So, if has a reader of your work ever mentioned something that they found in your work that you didn't see, where you're like, oh, yeah, that happened?
Not so far. You mentioning before we started recording, behind the scenes, how much you liked about the concept of names, and maybe this was during the recording. Maybe I'm fumbling this completely. Maybe. Okay.
But yeah,
Never mind.
We talk about it. No, it's fine. But yeah, so but yeah, I mean, and we did even talk before because I mentioned, I don't know. There were a lot of oh shit moments in your book for me, and I like oh shit moments when I read where it's like, oh, like that's, again, like you said, it's not that it's not a possible outcome, but it defies the expectations of the reader, which I think is nice because so many times I'm watching something or reading something and I'm like, this is what's going to come next. And you're like, damn it, I was right.
Well, thank you. I love that. And you mentioned off the top that you kind of pushed against it in a good way, that this isn't Shakespeare. This isn't Shakespeare. And I'm no one, but I do think it is Shakespeare. I think you'd get a kick out of this. And, who am I to say? But I think about a lot that Freddie Mercury of Queen said, you can do anything you want with my music as long as it's not boring. I think if good old Billy Shakes was here, he loved fart jokes. Are you kidding? He loved cross-dressing, and I think he would be all into the silly.
Yes. I think you are absolutely right. And he's the OG rule breaker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is the original, I'm going to totally mess with the structure of theater rule breaker. And so, yeah, in that sense, you are very correct. You are carrying on with the tradition of Shakespeare.
That's what people say about me. Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Well, this has been so much fun. And I think, you know, hearing about what you are doing and what you are trying to do and the difficulties that go along with it, I think it goes a long way to making a lot of other writers feel less alone in the struggle of what it takes to be not just a writer but an author.
We're
You know,
all
it's
sad.
really,
Yeah. Yeah, come on. Join the club.
red county.
Yes. Tattoo that on my back, man.
But you know, I think the idea that it is a process and it's difficult and we're all fighting through it, I think is something that I I love that. I'm sorry that you are going through it, and
Oh,
I wish
yes.
you an agent soon.
I wish you an agent.
Thank you.
Hey, agents.
Agents. But I also think like and I hope that all the listeners out there will hear that it is difficult and that there are a lot of obstacles, but that you can just keep writing.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
that's your choice.
You can always keep writing.
You can
Absolutely. For
always
sure.
keep writing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
thank
Tim
you.
made a
That's
choice, and we've
yes.
made our choices, and
No,
it's
thank
harder.
you very much. That means a lot. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk with me. I
Thanks for
really
having me.
appreciate it. You've been so much fun. And everybody else, just remember, all the world's a stage, and you too can be a shrew. Bye.